We'll record for you.
Thank you so much. It's not letting me record from here, so.
Well, we hit the record button, so we're recording. And first of all, what an exciting opportunity you presented us. I'm so excited to talk to your class today. And if this works, we've been out here struggling with technology. If this works, we prove we can do virtual field trips, and we'd love to continue to do virtual field trips with you for your purposes. But I'm David Arnold, and I am your state forester. I'm the executive director of the Tennessee Division of Forestry. We are a division within the Department of Agriculture. We're about 300 full-time people, 130 part-time people, very passionate about our mission, and our mission is to protect, conserve, and enhance Tennessee's forests, and that is all forests. That's forests in the rural setting, forests in the urban setting for all forest benefits, and of course we know those benefits include timber to build houses and make paper, habitat for wildlife. If y'all can hear, there's just a symphony of birds chattering this morning. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not. Forests provide habitat for wildlife. Forested watersheds provide abundant, clean water for all those purposes, for animals to drink, to swim in, to fish. And then forests also provide really cool places to hang out. I call them RCAs, or really cool areas. What we're going to do today, I'm going to talk to you maybe for 15 minutes about where we are, what's going on here. Then I'm going to hand the mic over to Dr. Sharon Jean-Phillipe at the University of Tennessee, and she's going to speak to UT's Urban Forestry program, and there are some students from UT on as well, and maybe they'll have a few words to say. And then we're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end for students or anybody to ask questions, because we want this to be interactive. We want you to ask questions. But what I'd like to say about this forest, this is a fairly young forest. It's about 10 years old. It's a pretty diverse forest. We have different species. This is a species of red oak. Here's another red oak right here. Back over here, this one with a little bit different colored bark, this flaky bark. This is actually a swamp white oak. You find it in bottomlands and places like that. And as you pan across there, you just see a multitude of different red oaks, swamp white oak. There's some true white oaks out here. And there was a black walnut over here. Tim, if you'll come over here, we'll show them a black walnut. And this is a black walnut, which is a tremendously valuable timber species. Of course, it produces nuts that are good to eat. So one thing about this forest, it's a hardwood forest. It's pretty diverse. But the first special thing that I wanted to mention about this forest is this forest was planted through our Riparian Forest program. This forest was planted by students just like you in the classroom as volunteers. And what I wanted to do real quick was demonstrate how we established this forest. Previously, before we planted this forest, it was an open area, but students just like you came out here on Saturday and helped us plant this forest. So let me demonstrate that real quick. I'm going to have to put this down for a second, or Tim, can you hold this for me? Might be getting ready to run out of juice. But we planted the forest with bare root seedling. That's an example of bare root seedling. One week might have been a little bit taller, but the parts of the seedling are the root system. These roots are looking pretty sad right now. Whenever you're planting seeds like this, never let the roots dry out. And I was demonstrating planting seedlings yesterday, and these roots have gotten a little dry. These are the roots. These are live roots, a place where the roots turn to the stem, top of the tree, called root collar. And when we plant a bare root seedling, we want to plant it where the root collar is right at or just below ground level. And I'm going to demonstrate how we do this using a cool tool called a dibble bar. And here's what a dibble bar looks like. This is a cool tool. So to plant a seedling like this, you got to start off with a quality seedling. The next most important thing is make sure you protect the roots, which I have not done in this case. They're dried out. They're looking pretty sad. But then the third thing is make sure you have a good hole that you put this seedling in. And that's what this dibble bar is designed to do. It has this blade on the tip, on the end, that you jam into the ground. Push it back and forth to make your hole a little bigger. Take it out. Put your seedling in the hole. Try not to twirl your roots. Try not to make sure that they're J-rooting at the bottom or curling back up. put it about where the root collar is at the ground level. Come back off the ceiling a couple of inches, make another hole, close the bottom, close the top. You want to make sure you close that hole real good because you do not want air getting to those roots because that'll dry the roots out. Then you just sort of stomp this down. So that's the first thing that's special about this forest. It was planted by students just like you. The second thing special about this forest, I've already mentioned it, it's a riparian forest. And riparian forest basically just means it's a forest along a creek or a river or a stream. And let's go over here and see what that looks like. And as you can see, we're along a creek here. So the values of planting a forest or establishing a forest or protecting a forest along a creek or stream are multifold. Again, they provide some of the benefits I mentioned earlier. Habitat for animals. I mean, this forest is being used by squirrels and birds and other critters. Riparian forests provide a buffer and a filter, keep pollutants from getting into this creek. You can imagine when it rains, there's no sediment or soil that's going to be washing from this area because we planted the trees, and those trees act as a buffer and a filter. When the rain falls down, the canopy of the trees sort of slows that rain down. Then when it hits the ground, that ground acts like a big sponge, and that water is absorbed into the ground instead of running off. And then in providing that sponging effect, it also acts as a filter to filter out soil and other pollutants to prevent it from getting into the creek. So that's the second thing that's special about this forest. It's a riparian forest. Now I'm going to introduce you to Robert Elliott. He is our urban forestry program manager. And I'm putting Robert on the spot here. He didn't know I was going to do this to him. But Robert, do you want to say anything else about riparian forests and the value that they provide?
You know, David hit all the key things. They're a great buffer for runoff, flooding issues. It's very big importance to our kind of our urban forest. Without these, we'd have huge issues with flooding across all of our major cities and erosion issues and you name it. So it's a giant concern that we need to protect these little small buffers and riparian areas and continue to plant them and make sure we're creating more of them, and especially with all the development that we're seeing across our state.
Sure.
It's a big issue that we need to start focusing on more.
Sure. And of course, when you plant a forest like this, in some aspects, it's like growing a garden. You still have to tend them. Here is a plant. It's already leafing out. This is an invasive exotic. It's bush honeysuckle. We don't want invasive exotics like this to take over the riparian forest that was just planted. So we might come in and treat these and remove them somehow. And let's go over here and look at another issue we need to deal with on this forest as well. Okay, since this forest was planted on extremely highly productive soil, it also has grapevines, which is an indicator of extremely highly productive soil. So there are some trees in this forest that are struggling because grapevines are up in the crown and sort of preventing them from just fully extending and reaching out. So whether it's a forest in a urban setting or rural setting, or riparian forest or forest on the side of a mountain, sometimes those forests need to be tended in order to make sure that they're growing as best they can. And that's some examples of some treatments or some actions we can take in this forest to make sure it continues to be healthy. The third thing that's special about this forest, it is in Davidson County. And let's step out here and I'll show you where it is. We are behind the Edmondson Pike Library, for those that know where this is. And as I mentioned, volunteers just like you sitting in the classroom helped us plant this forest about 10 years ago. Extremely successful program. Thank you for the opportunity for us to do this remote field trip with you. If this proves to be successful, we'd love to do it again on some other topics. What I'm going to do right now is pass the mic over to Dr. Sharon Jean-Phillipe at the University of Tennessee and let her explain their program and maybe recruit some of you as future students at UT. So, Dr. JP, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. David, that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful demonstration. Kudos. So, hi, everybody. Yeah, no. Hi, everybody. I am Sharon Jean-Phillipe, a professor of urban forestry in the Department of Forestry, Wildlife, and Fisheries at the University of Tennessee. The urban forestry program has been going on for the last 10 years or so. It started back in 2012. We do have some wonderful students online. Kayla Stewart, who is a junior in the program, and then I have two of my graduate students, Jaq Payne and Maddy Johnson. I would rather them talk about the program and their experiences instead of you listen to this old person talk about it. One thing I would like to say is we do offer a lot of what we call real life solution courses. So at the end of the day, you will not walk in class and say, okay, here's a book, learn the material and call it a day. No, that will never be your urban forestry experience. Basically, well, Kayla will tell you in less than a week, we will start our intro to tree climbing. I teach a number of courses on teaching students how to successfully ascend and descend out of trees for the purposes of taking care of that vegetation. Yes, we're not rock climbing. We are taking care of vegetation because that's what urban forestry is about, making sure that we provide safe, healthy spaces for people to reconnect back to. I will pause now and allow each of the students to say a couple words. Kayla, kick it off for us.
Hey everyone, I'm Kayla Stewart. I hope you can hear me okay. Awesome. So as Dr. JP said, I'm a junior here at the University of Tennessee studying urban forestry, and I'm minoring in sustainability. I was not aware of this program when I was in community college until one of my professors introduced me to Dr. JP. And I have learned so many applicable skills while in this program, and I have found the perfect fit for both helping people and being out in nature, which are two of my biggest passions in life. So I feel like I'm thriving in this program, and I really cannot, I couldn't see myself doing anything else right now. So I hope that's what you're looking for, Dr. JP, but I really am passionate about urban forestry and sustainable forests.
Thank you. Yes, totally what I was looking for. Could you highlight internship opportunities to give that real life solution note?
Yes. So personally, I did an internship with the United States Forest Service last summer, which was in the woods. It is a little more established than what Dave Arnold just showed you. It's actually a really big, broad forest. And so we did what we call timber plots, which is measuring and collecting data about the forest for multiple uses. And I got paid, which is always a plus. And it's one of those experiences that I never saw myself doing it, and I could not be more thankful to have had that experience. And so I've got an internship up as well this summer doing our Tennessee Champion Tree program. So we'll be going all across Tennessee, East, Middle, and West, cataloging the biggest trees in the state. So it's an incredible program. I could go on for hours or days. So I'll stop here and let someone else take it.
Thank you, Kayla. All right, Jaq Payne, could you talk about your experience?
Absolutely. So I'm actually the student director of the Tennessee Champion Tree Program, where we measure and record the largest specimen of each species of tree in the state of Tennessee. So that's one of our internship opportunities, like Kayla was talking about. It's an awesome program where we get to go out and hug some of the biggest trees in the state, and it's just fantastic. My graduate research is focused on urban food forestry, which is the ancient practice of modeling urban agriculture after the structure of the forest. So it's very complex. It's lots of biodiversity, because of course we need that. We need urban biodiversity and spots for all our pollinators to land as they're traveling through our cities. It's specifically working within a public housing community. So we're really looking at trying to get fresh produce at affordable prices, free, to folks who are disadvantaged income-wise. The urban forestry program, I cannot say enough wonderful things about it. It's hands-on, it's fantastic, it's real-world applications, it's connection with nature and connection with community. I could sing its praises all day. Come join us.
Thank you, Jaq. All right, I left like the best for last since we were at a riparian area, and Maddy Johnson, that is her actual master's thesis work, is running our community riparian restoration program across the state. Go ahead, Maddy, tell us about it.
Hi, my name's Maddy. I'm a forestry master's student. And I'm going to go off what Kayla said. Urban forestry is not something that I even realized was something you could study when I was in undergrad, but I got exposed to it last year when I was working for a nonprofit in Nashville, and I fell in love with it. And urban forests are a big part of your life, whether you realize it or not. And there's so many directions you can go with it. So what I'm working on is I'm working with the Community Riparian Restoration Program for Tennessee, which is funded by the Division of Forestry. And our main goal is we're using applied research to drive community involvement in restoration. Because as David said, there are so many benefits that riparian buffers provide for water quality, for biodiversity, habitat, recreational value. So healthy communities and healthy watersheds really need quality riparian buffers. And right now we're working in East Tennessee, and we'll move on to Middle and West Tennessee in later years, but we're just focusing on East Tennessee right now. And currently we're working on collecting and compiling data that's already available. So things like visual stream assessments from government agencies, TDEC water quality data, even LIDAR data for vegetation quality. So we're kind of collecting and compiling all this data that's already out there. We're creating a digital educational resource for the public to visualize riparian buffer quality in their area. And also we're hoping to use different social and physical parameters like population density and location of utility easements to kind of prioritize different areas for riparian restoration, because that's our main goal, is to make sure that restoration is both possible and will be widely accepted by the community. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing in restoration, is people like you getting involved and actually caring about your watersheds and your forests. So it's super awesome that you guys are doing this. And thank you so much, David, for having us on.
Okay, I think that's our time. David, Tim, and Elliott, are we good?
We're good.
Okay, now I think we were going to open it up for questions back to Scott and his class.
Yeah.
Yes. Any questions, Mr. Carter, from you or your students?
Yeah. Can you see us out there?
Yes, we can. We can see you out there.
Right. We're gonna
have
some students walk up here. Who's number one?
I got to put my glasses on, y'all. Just a second. Comes along with age. Okay.
All right. This is Hadassah, and she's gonna ask you guys a question.
So what are the most significant threats to Tennessee forests?
Most significant threats to Tennessee forests. We're concerned about wildfires in our state, especially in East Tennessee, especially when those wildfires come around communities. We're also concerned about invasive exotic species coming in, whether that's plants or insects. You know, we mentioned back here in looking at this riparian forest, especially the bush honeysuckle, that's an invasive exotic. If y'all aren't familiar with emerald ash borer, look it up. That's a beetle. That's an insect that's killing our ash trees that we're worried about. The other thing that we are concerned about that's threatening Tennessee's forests is development. You know, when you look at all the development going on, that development a lot of times is either occurring on forest or ag lands, and we need our forest and ag lands to produce the things that we need to live. And this next one might not be as intuitive, but one of the biggest threats to Tennessee's forests is 83% of Tennessee's forests are privately owned. That's by private citizens, whether they're families or individuals, and they need information to know how to best manage those forests to keep them productive, healthy, and resilient on the landscape. So that lack of information, of lack of understanding about how forests work, that they can and need to be proactively managed, is a big challenge that we face as well too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We got a few more, I think.
Sure.
Jade, are you number 2? This is Jade, and she's got a question for you guys.
What methods are used to assess the health of forests in Tennessee?
Okay, the question is, what methods are used to assess the health of forests in Tennessee? Some of those were mentioned. I mean, we actually get out in the forest and measure them. There are specific tools to do that. We use sampling techniques based on statistics. So you need to, if you have a class in statistics and you want to be a forester, pay attention. Because a lot of what we do is when we measure the forest and try to understand what's going on, it's based on statistics. So we actually get out in the field, we measure those forests, what species are out there, how fast they're growing, are there invasive exotic plants there, or invasive exotic insects impacting the forest, what's the health of the forest, is land use changing? So that's a big tool we use. We also use remote sensing. Somebody mentioned LIDAR, which is a remote sensing technique. Fly over an area and take images of that area, and you can learn a whole lot from that remote sensing LIDAR. There's, GIS systems, geographical information systems. We can take all that information, develop it into a story map, and then sort of tell the story of all this data and information that we've collected and what's going on. You have any more questions, Mr. Carter?
Yeah. Devaney, are you number 3? Yeah, we've got 5 if that's okay.
That's fine.
This is the 3rd one.
Okay.
And this is Devaney.
Okay.
I know you mentioned it briefly, like talking about development, but what are the specific impacts of growing cities like Nashville on our forests and green spaces?
So I heard you ask what's the specific impacts of Nashville developing onto our forest. Is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Well, basically, whenever development comes about, just think about what's happened. Let's say something moves in, a business or a residential area, and you're removing that forest and replacing it, and a lot of times with what we call impervious surface. That's asphalt, driveways, pavement. And when that happens, your whole watershed dynamics change. When it rains on a forested area, and that's one of the values of this riparian forest. Remember, it acts like a big sponge. So when it rains on those areas, the water soaks into the ground. When you have development come about, that impervious surface does not allow that water to soak into the ground, so it has to go somewhere. So it flashes off site. It might cause flooding problems. The water, when it moves off a site like that, is moving so much quicker than in a forested area, so the potential for erosion is so much greater. So that's one impact. And then obviously the other impact is you're removing the forest. So you lose the benefits of timber production, you lose the wildlife habitat benefits, you lose the really cool areas to hang out. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a forested watershed provides clean, abundant public use water, where a watershed that has more development in it than forest, that may not necessarily be so. Who's next?
David,
All right.
can I chime in a little bit on that too?
Go ahead.
Okay, great, because that is a great question, and that is the benefit of urban forestry and actually having a good balance between green infrastructure and gray infrastructure. And so, as David mentioned, when we have too much gray infrastructure that does not allow the natural processes in nature to happen, then yes, you have an imbalance. So that's why we tell cities, especially developers, we're glad that you need to build that house because we all need to live in a house. Don't get me wrong, but we need a better interplay of bringing back in, or maybe not removing, we call it preservation forestry, meaning we preserve the vegetation that's there so that we don't have to go in and scrape everything off to then bring back in what we call this alien vegetation that's not used to that environment, right? And so why we do understand that development is needed, especially in a place like Nashville that's receiving 100 or so people every week, we get it. But we also understand that, look, we need to preserve areas better and then also bring more green infrastructure in. Thank you, David, for letting me chime in.
Thank you. No problem.
All right. This is Elliott.
What trees are most important to Tennessee, economically or otherwise?
Okay, the question was, which trees are most important to Tennessee economically and otherwise? And this is going to sound like a cop-out answer. This is my answer. They're all important at some level. You know, Tennessee is a hardwood state. 90% of our forests are hardwood forests. Those forests support a $24 billion forest products industry that employs about 98,000 people. You know, that's where we get our lumber, our paper, those forest products. But when you add to that hunting and fishing, when you add to that recreation or just really cool places to hang out, that whole forest-derived economy in Tennessee is $41 billion. That's billion with a B. That's a whole lot of jingling change. That's real money. So that whole forest economy is and that's probably a conservative estimate. I'm going to say it's over $41 billion. So which trees are most important? It's all of them for different reasons.
Okay.
If I can chime in one more time to David's point. Yep, David's point. Over 50%, roughly about 53% of our state is forested. You might not see it in Nashville, but once you get out of Nashville proper, you have to understand over the size of our state, over 50%, like 53% of our state's forested. That's a lot of land. So to David's point, a lot of that vegetation, all of it's important. Good job.
I'm sorry, my phone died, so we had to struggle to switch over to another phone.
It's all right. We're having our own technical issues here. We'll try one more here, and then we'll let you guys go.
Okay.
All right, so the question is, what is your favorite tree species and why?
Oh, I love this question. My favorite tree species is Magnoliaceae, Magnolia acuminata. And that's the cucumber tree. I bet you didn't even know we had cucumber trees in Tennessee's forest. And the reason that is my favorite tree is every time you come across it, you're just in a really cool area. You're along a creek, and it's in general an East Tennessee tree. You're down in a deep, dark cove. You're just in a really cool, remote area when you come across cucumber trees. So thank you for asking that question. That's my favorite tree and why.
All right. We're getting ready to go out to Warner Park on a field trip tomorrow. And we've been talking about geology. We'll do a geology field trip tomorrow. And we're talking about how the geology impacts the biology. So
sure.
This has been a really very super useful to us. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to ask if any students are interested in the urban forestry program, what's the best way to find out about it?
Dr. JP, I'll let you take that one.
No, totally. You are more than welcome, Mr. Carter, to just email me and I can send you over a good bit of information. We love to send stuff to students. So how about we just send you a box of stuff? And we go from there. Let's start there. And then from there, then they can just, hey, let's have a trip to campus and come sit in on a class or come during the summer when nobody's really here and you can really have some fun. But yes, send me your information. I'll send you a box of pamphlets and other good stuff for the students, okay?
Great. We so appreciate all of your efforts here. We had no idea what so many people were involved. So
thank you. Thank you. And I think this was quite successful. So we've proven we can do it, and next time we can do it even better. So if you would like to plan future remote field days or even field days in person, we would love to do it. I do have one thing that I want to comment and leave with Tim. If you'll bring the camera over here. I think it was Jaq that was mentioning, forests can be positioned to provide food and grow fruit, apples and nuts and stuff. So forests do provide us things to eat. This is a redbud tree, and it's starting to come in flower. You can see the flowers, and the flowers of redbud are actually edible. You can take them and put them on salad to brighten the color of your salad. And just a tidbit of something that may help you remember this day. Thank y'all so much. This has been fun. We proved we can do it. We'll just have to do it again. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.